Hello, I'm Congressman Berg, and I have the honor of representing the great state of North Dakota. Today I'm delivering the Western Caucus weekly address about how burdensome government regulations threaten job creation and poses one of the biggest challenges facing our economy. In Western states, we know the damaging effects that overbearing government regulations can have on our small business. From farmers and ranchers to family-run stores, Washington's one-size-fits-all regulations add unnecessary cost, increased uncertainty, and make it harder for folks to do business. Last week I held a regulations tour back home in North Dakota to highlight real-life examples of the impact senseless regulations have on North Dakota farmers, ranchers, and small businesses. I spoke with energy providers who were concerned that the EPA's regional haze requirements could cost North Dakota $700 million to comply with. Farmers told me about the ever-changing fuel storage mandates that added new costs whenever the rules were changed. And I learned how new EPA regulations on gas generators could cost one school district $250,000, not because the school district is using the generator more than they're allowed, but because the EPA just doesn't like the hours they are choosing to use it. In Western states, we know that jobs come from small business, not big government. And if Washington would just let our small business do their jobs without constantly changing the rules, we can get our economy turned around. Plain and simple, we must rein in the unnecessary regulations that burden our small businesses and hinder job creation. And the Western Caucus is committed to that end. The House has recently worked to pass common sense legislation that reins in senseless regulation and assesses the true economic impact that many of these regulations have on America's job creators. This week we passed bills that would provide job creators with regulatory relief from two EPA rules that threaten American jobs, including one rule that threatens nearly 16,000 jobs in the western states alone and more than 230,000 jobs nationwide. Too often the EPA imposes new rules without taking into account how these regulations will affect our economy and our small businesses' ability to create jobs. That's why the House recently voted on the TRAIN Act, which requires that the EPA's large environmental regulations are analyzed to determine what kind of economic impact they'll have on American small businesses. Only in Washington can regulators impose a new rule without even considering the economic impact it would have. We're also working on the REINS Act, which will require Congress to take an up or down vote on all new major rules before they can be enforced on the American public. Job-creating small businesses or state and local governments. This year alone, more than 200 new rules with an economic impact of more than $100 million a year were forced on American farmers, ranchers, and small businesses. This bill would aim to limit the power of runaway government agencies that are paralyzing small businesses with these costly new rules. These are just a few examples of the solutions the Western Caucus has focused on in our Jobs Frontier report. And as a Western Caucus, we will continue to press for action on reducing the regulatory challenges facing Americans. In the West, we know firsthand the damaging effect of Washington's one-size-fits-none approach to regulations. Washington is not the answer, it's the problem. I look forward to continuing to work with my colleagues in the Western Caucus to bring some rural common sense to Washington decision-making and get our country back on track.